Now, waistcoats are usually worn under suits and they are very common when it comes to formal wear. Now, before we start cutting, let me quickly go through the measurements. Now, we're working with a shoulder of 17 inches. The chest is 40 inches. The waistcoat length is 25 inches, while the armhole is 17 inches. Now, cutting of a waistcoat is very similar to cutting an English shirt. There are lots of similarities. Now, the first part we're going to cut is the front part of the waistcoat. That's the part that has the button and the buttonhole. So now, I've folded my fabric into two. I'm going to place the measurement for the front part of the waistcoat. Then after cutting the front part, we're going to use the front part to cut the back part of the waistcoat. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to place the length of the waistcoat. Now we're working with the waistcoat length of 25 inches. So now I'm going to place my tape at the top of the fabric this way. Then I'm going to come down by 25 inches. As you can see, this is 25 inches here. I'm going to place my chalk. So I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to draw a straight line to indicate the length of the waistcoat, which is the 25 inches. So I'm going to draw a straight line. I'm going to add 1 inch allowance to the length of the waistcoat that we placed on the front part. I'm going to draw a straight line to indicate the 1 inch allowance that I left. Next place we're going to mark is the chest round measurement. You know, we're cutting just the front part of the waistcoat. Now we're working with a chest of 40 inches. So that 40 inches, now we're going to divide it by 4. So 40 inches divided by 4, that will give us 10 inches. So I'm going to place my 10 inches, but I'm not just going to place the 10 inches. I'm going to place 1.5 inch allowance for the overlap, because it's the front part of the waistcoat that will have the button and the buttonhole. There will be an overlap. So I'm going to place 1.5 inch for the overlap. Then I'm going to place 1 inch for the side seam allowance. The chest round divided by 4, that will give us 10 inches. Plus 1.5 inch overlap, that will give us 11.5 inches, plus 1 inch side seam allowance, that will give us 12.5 inches. So I'm going to place my 12.5 inches mark here. I'm going to mark with my chalk. 12.5 inches, I'm going to mark with my chalk. I'm going to draw a straight line and connect all my markings. Draw a straight line, connect it to this part, straight line and connect it to this part till I take. So the reason why we added 1.5 inch allowance for the overlap is the overlap is actually 1 inch. You know, we're going to use lining to turn the front part. So when we use lining to turn the front part, it's going to take off that 1/2 inch. So we'll now have 1 inch for the overlap. I'm going to take my scissors and cut my markings. I'm going to cut it straight down till I get to this other part. So this piece now is the front piece. Now we're about to cut the back part of the waistcoat. This fabric at the back is what we use to cut the back part. But as you can see, I folded the fabric into two. Then I took the front part that I cut and I placed it this way, as you can see. Now if you look at the upper part here, the back part is longer than the front part by 3 inches because of the hunch of the back. As you can see, the front part came out here by 1.5 inch. So that 1.5 inch I added for the overlap allowance, I brought it out here. So this from here to here now is 1.5 inch. So I folded the back exactly the allowance of the front, but I left out this 1.5 inch allowance. So this 1.5 inch allowance, once to fix our button and the buttonhole, it will actually close off this 1.5 inch allowance. So I did the same thing at the lower part here. I left that 1.5 inch allowance. I'm going to cut it to align with that of the front too. The next part we're going to cut is the neck opening and the opening for the waistcoat. So now on this front part of the neck, I'm going to go in from this position by 2 inches. Now this 2 inches that I'm going in with is for average neck sizes like maybe 15 or 16 inches. Now if you are sewing for someone that is very big and maybe has a very wide neck, you can take it as much as 2.5 inches. Take note that I'm not placing my tape around this overlap area because this overlap will go off after we fix our button to the buttonhole. So I'm taking my measurement from the fold of the back. So I'm going to place my tape at this position at the fold of the back. Then I'm going to place my 2 inches. So I'm going to mark my 2 inches. So this is the 2 inches. Now I'm going to come down by 10 inches. This measurement can vary depending on how long the person wants the opening to be. But on average, I usually come down by 10 inches. So I'm going to place my tape from the front part here. Now I'm going to come down by 10 inches. So I'll follow these 10 inches to mark the opening for the front part. Then with a straight line, I'm going to connect it to this my 10 inches mark. From this position, I'm going to give a slight curve. Then I'm going to curve it slightly till it meets these 2 inches that I marked here. So I'm going to take my chalk. Then I'm going to give it a slight curve from this position. Curve it to this position until it gets to this mark here. So now I'm going to place my shoulder measurements. So 17 inches divided by 2, that will give me 8.5. So I'm going to mark my 8.5. All these measurements that I'm marking, take note, I'm not starting from this overlap because this overlap is not part of the measurement. I'm starting from the fold of this back part. So I'm going to place my tape from this position. I'm going to mark my 8.5 inches along this position this way. So I'm going to slant the shoulder. I'm going to slant the shoulder by 2.5 inches. I'm going to slant it down by 2.5 inches. This is my 2.5 inch mark. Then I'm going to take my ruler. and I'm going to place it from the neck position. I'm going to slant it and connect it to the 2.5 inch mark that I made. This, as you can see this. Then I'm going to mark that 3 inches from this position. Mark the 3 inches from this position also. I'm going to mark my 3 inches following the slants that I made, and I'm going to cut this back part that I slanted. So now I'm going to take these back parts and overlap the front shoulder this way. I'm going to overlap it by 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to place my shoulder measurement. So now we're working with a shoulder of 17 inches. 17 divided by 2, that will give us 8.5 inches. So I'm going to place my tape from this position. Take note, from the fold of the back, not from the overlap. I'm going to place my tape. Now I'm going to mark my 8.5 inches, and I'm going to add 1/2 inch allowance to that 8.5. That will give me 9 inches. So I'm going to mark my 9 inches around this position, as you can see. So now from this position, I'm going to place my armhole. So that armhole, I'm going to divide it by 2. So now we're working with the armhole of 17 inches. 17 inches divided by 2, that will give me 8.5 inches. So from this position I marked here, I'm going to place my 8.5 inches to mark the armhole. So the 8.5 inches is around here, like this. I'm going to take my ruler and draw a straight line from this position, like this. Connect it this way to my 8.5 inches. Connect it. Then I'm going to connect it this other way, like this. Connect it this way. So now from the midpoint of the armhole, around this position, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then from this shoulder position, I'm going to connect it with a curve. Connect it to that my 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to curve it down this way, like this. Curve it down this way, like this, till it comes down this way. From this position, I'm going to curve it this way. Curve it this way, like this. Ensuring that I follow the markings that I curved. So now this marking that we made for the neck, I'm going to cut it following the curve that I made, just the front part. Curve it down this way, like this. This is my point here, as you can see. I'm going to take the back part, overlap it with the front by 1/2 inch, like this. I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to cut it a little bit so I will know the area where it meets the front. Now I'm going to open it up this way. I'm going to place my tape to know the measurement. We have 3 inches. 3 inches divided by 2, that will give me 1.5 inch. So this is my 1.5 inch mark. I'm going to draw a straight line. So from this marking I did, I'm going to connect it to this cut that I made here. Connect it to this position here that I cut. So I'm going to use my scissors and cut it from this position till I connect it to this other part here. So I'm going to connect it this way, like this. So this is how to cut the back part of the neck. So we need to trim out some fabric along this area so that the waistcoat will be fitted. So from this position, I'm going to come down by 6.5 inches here. I'm going to mark the 6.5 inch. So this 6.5 inch, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch. I'm going to curve it, connect it to my 1/2 inch that I marked. So I'm going to curve it like this, like this. I'm going to curve it like this, as you can see. So this next thing I'm about to do is not compulsory. I like doing it because it's a style preference. On this lower part, I'm going to go up by 3 inches, like this. I'm going to go up by 3 inches. So on this lower part, I'm going to go in by 3 inches too, like this. On this part, this, connect this part, connect it to this side, like this. So from this part, I'm going to cut it. So take note, I'm cutting only the front part, not the back. Here's the back, so I'm cutting only the front part. So I'm going to raise the front part up this way. Then I'm going to cut this curve. I like doing this because it gives the waistcoat a very stylish look from the front. On this part, I'm going to go up by 1.5 inch. So on this point, around this area, the midpoint between this point and this point, around this area, I'm going to connect this curve and I'm going to connect it to this part. So I'm going to curve both the back and the front from this side. I'm going to curve it like this till I connect it to this part here, like this. So this is how to cut a waistcoat. So this is the back part of the waistcoat. This is the front part of the waistcoat. This is one side of the front and this is the other part of the front. I'll be ready to wear online shirt course, a complete teaching on how to cut and sew an English shirt from start to finish, from the cuffs to the placket to the button and the buttonhole to the collar. If you're interested in this course and you're actually interested in upgrading your skill in tailoring, click the link in the description to get access to this course.